Even though the New York State eviction moratorium ended on January the 15th, many landlords are still suffering because judges are thwarting the evictions of non-paying tenants. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of New York State. Now, as I told you before in a prior video, the New York State eviction moratorium actually ended on January the 15th. So I'm thinking, hey, this is great news, okay? Landlords are finally going to be able to get rid of these non-paying tenants. Now, unfortunately, the judges in a lot of these eviction courts are still doing things that are hurting landlords. And in particular, what they're doing is they're telling the tenants to apply for rental assistance. Now, normally, I wouldn't probably have a problem with this. However, as I reported in another video, the rental assistance program in New York State is out of money, okay? So there's no money at all that can be allocated to a landlord. However, while the application is pending for rental assistance, a landlord is unable to evict that tenant. So basically, the landlord is caught in limbo until either the rental assistance program gets more money or until finally the judge allows the tenant to be evicted. So this could mean that a landlord who has been, not paid for a long period of time could go months or longer before they're finally able to either get rid of that tenant or get any sort of reimbursement. Now, that's an absolutely crazy situation to be put in. It shouldn't even be legal to be telling people to apply for this rental assistance when there's no money in the program. Okay, now I know they had shut the program down for a while because it had run out of money, but they lost this court case and were required to open it back up. So now we've got all these tenants who have protection from eviction, yet there's no money that's being compensated towards the landlord. So we have the basic Fifth Amendment violation right there, unlawful taking of private property without just compensation. Okay, it's pretty obvious. This is exactly why I don't like eviction moratoriums. This is why rental assistance programs don't work. And the article I'm going over actually has the case of a landlord who's going through this situation right now, and it's a pretty bad story. Okay. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of this sort of situation. Do you think this is ridiculous? Okay, why would they have renewed or reopened the rental assistance program when there's no money in it? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, this was a pure political move to try to get people, let people stay in their housing without the government having to pay anything, and the landlords, they just have to suffer. Okay, it's on the backs of the landlords. Landlords are, going through bankruptcy and foreclosure, losing everything they have to pay, so that poor people who, homeless people, they're the new homeless shelter. They're the new social services program. That's not our job. We're businesses. We deserve to be, in business and making money like every other business. And this is a complete joke, and I don't like it. Okay. Now, this article, it's coming from therealdeal.com, and it says, "Nothing has changed. Judges thwart evictions of non-paying tenants. Moratorium's over, but courts stymie landlords by steering tenants to bankrupt program." All right, let's get into it, and this will probably explain it a little bit better than I could. For Schenectady landlord Romeo Budhu, the end of the eviction moratorium this month should have been his shot at salvation. Last May, Budhu's plight to collect rent from non-paying tenants made the Washington Post, an example of the pain that the moratorium had wrought on small property owners. Insulated from the threat of eviction, Budhu's renters had stopped paying, some of them for a year, despite having income or aid options. Desperate, Budhu had maxed out his credit cards and defaulted on his property taxes, and he doubted his uncooperative tenants would apply for the state's rent aid program, which was later bogged down by glitches, delays, and insufficient funding. So yeah, we've got a small property owner, right? And here he is just trying to keep his properties afloat. He's done maxed out his credit cards. He couldn't pay his property taxes. They're going to come after him. They might have temporary, you don't have to pay all your taxes right now, but they're going to demand their money. That's the way this state works, They're going to tell you, well, we're going to make it so you can't get paid, but then we're going to demand our money. Okay, that's the way that this complete joke of a state works. Okay, and it's absolutely frustrating. Now his tenants weren't cooperating, and like he said, some of them hadn't paid for over a year. Yet the rental assistance programs have been open for a long time. They could have applied for that rental assistance a long time ago, but they didn't. They didn't because they knew there were no repercussions for not applying for it. They weren't going to be evicted. And the only people they were going to help was the landlord. They don't give a crap about the landlord. Long as they get to stay for free in their apartment or their unit, then they're happy, okay? So whether the landlord gets paid or not, that's not their problem. His fate, he thought, depended on the New York State letting the eviction ban expire. But in the nearly 2 weeks since it did, and housing courts began hearing eviction cases for pandemic non-payment, Budhu said nothing has changed. The owner has tried to take his delinquent tenants to court. 7 of his 17 units are behind on rent, he said, but the latest obstacle is the courts themselves. Budhu said judges are advising tenants during court appearances to apply for ERAP, the aid program which provides an immediate shield against eviction. So, yeah, like 40% of this guy's tenants are not even paying rent right now. That's a huge, huge blow. Okay, and I honestly don't even know how he's doing it. Okay, he must be, have a large amount of emergency reserves, because if I had 40% of my tenants not paying, I'd be, out. I'd be knocked out. I mean, within a few months, I'd just be like, well, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I had to start selling these properties. So the landlords have to wait again, Budhu said. Kara Rafferty, president of the New York Capital Region Apartment Association, which represents multifamily owners, confirmed Budhu's assessment, as did the Office of Court Administration. If a tenant is unrepresented, we expect our judges to explore with the tenant all of the tenant's options and choices, said OCA spokesperson Lucien Chalfin, noting that judges statewide are taking that approach. The ERAP application process is open, and tenants have a right to apply in anticipation of the receipt of additional funds. ERAP, however, is out of money and not guaranteed to get more. Still, tenants who apply are shielded from eviction while their application is pending. Yeah, so the rental assistance program, is completely out of money. There's no more. Okay, so unless they get more funding from the federal government, then there's not going to be any rental assistance. Yet, if you apply for rental assistance, you're protected from eviction. So how does this work? Okay, in my opinion, what should happen is the state of New York, if they are saying, hey, you have to keep these tenants in your unit, then they need to pull out of their general fund for the state of New York the money to pay you the rent because they're forcing you to house people without getting paid. Okay, and they deserve to lose this lawsuit. I've told you, they have lawsuits pending right now because of the issues with this whole eviction moratorium and rental assistance program. Okay, they have lawsuits pending. I hope that they lose, and they lose bad. Okay, and no, this is absolutely awful. Just them even saying, well, we have to wait until the federal government. They want a federal bailout, and that's a complete joke. They put this crap in place. They need to pay for it. It's their state. It's their people. It's their landlords that they have been screwing over, and they need to take care of them. I have to wonder if the courts understand that the funding has been exhausted, said Rafferty. Certainly, if the funding were there, we absolutely would want people to apply if they're eligible. They deserve help. The problem is there are no funds right now. Not only are ERAP's coffers empty, but the state has not promised they will be replenished. Governor Kathy Hochul initially shuttered the portal in November, announcing the program had exhausted most of its funding. At the time, more than 100,000 applications were awaiting approval. Tenant groups sued, and in January, a judge ordered the state to reopen the portal on the expectation that more funding would come. So yeah, they wisely had closed the portal, okay, when they ran out of money. Now they're sitting here and they're like, well, this judge forced us to reopen this thing, and now landlords are caught in the middle of this, legal mess. And I mean, what is a landlord supposed to do? Just keep taking the losses until they're bankrupt? That's what the state is saying. Okay? I mean, give me a break, okay? So we've got a situation up in New York where landlords are still suffering, even though their eviction moratorium is ended, even though this is supposed to be over. But if they got caught in a web of just complete bureaucratic and legal nonsense, and it's an awful thing. It's an awful position to be put in, but hey, it's not unexpected. That's why I say don't invest in these super anti-landlord, pro-tenant places, because this is the end result, especially when you're talking about people who they're not investing in places like New York City, where you might get a huge amount of appreciation still. They're investing up in upstate New York, where, hey, the population is declining, the area is still, it's not having the best growth, and the real estate prices and appreciation aren't what you would get in some of the the bigger, faster growing areas. So you got to ask yourself, is this really worth it? I mean, I know there's a lot of landlords who, they've for years they've done just fine up there, but hey, this might be the sign that, hey, it's time to get out of this business.